Hello, welcome again to Fully Alive Men's Health Summit. My name is Dr. Adewale, and thank you very much for joining us today. As you've been following us, we've had the State of Black Men's Health, we've had Fire Talk Live TV, and today we are bringing to you from Hebni Kitchen in downtown Orlando to talk about how to eat, cook healthy to live longer. How to cook healthy to prevent diseases. So right now we have Mr. Glenn Providence with me, who's the executive director of the Hebni Kitchen. And so talk about Hebni, what it stands for, and his role here, and the purpose of Hebni itself. Mr. Glenn.
Well, thank you so much for having me be a part of this. I appreciate all the work that you're doing and for such a noble cause. Ebony Nutrition, Ebony is an acronym that stands for Health Empowerment through Behavioral and Nutritional Initiatives. We're founded by registered dietitians, and our mission is simple to kind of boil it down is we teach people how to eat healthy, and we do that in a variety of different ways. So we have programs that we've developed over the almost 30 years, the existence of the organization, but it's culturally relevant and comprehensive nutrition education programs. So we have programs that run the gamut that focuses on childhood obesity. We do programs in Spanish. We do programs in Creole. We have programs that target the millennial demographic. And then our biggest program is Fresh Stop, which is our mobile farmers market bus. And the mission of that is to take produce and make it accessible into what's called food desert neighborhoods, exactly, where there is no major full service grocery stores. And so we work day in, day out to go into the community to provide comprehensive nutrition education to really for people who couldn't afford the services of a dietitian.
As we talk about, engaging the community in what we do, and everything we do is partnership. And like you said before, we have the food desert in our communities. Right. I mean, it's sparse all over our communities. Right. And what you're doing here is phenomenal by providing this education for people to be able to eat healthy, right, cook healthy, right, because all the diseases we see in our community, obesity, hypertension, can be prevented.
They're all diet-related diseases.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why we said, what do we partner with?
Right.
To present this episode for the Fully Alive Men's Health Summit.
Yeah.
And everybody was saying, you got to reach out to Glenn because Hebni stands for exactly what we're trying to do.
Exactly. No, these are preventable, like you said, preventable diseases, and lifestyle and culture has played a role in it. Just to dive a little bit into that food desert neighborhoods, especially in the underserved minority communities, what happens now is the opposite of food desert or food swamps.
Yeah.
So no major grocery stores, but they're now flooded with the fast food restaurants.
Exactly.
So you can't buy a tomato or a squash, but you can get a Happy Meal or a burger or some fried chicken. And it's unfortunate. And there's statistics and there's research that are done that shows that the life expectancy of Americans are dictated by the zip code you live in.
Exactly.
And so, and those zip codes, again, just boiling down, are really symptomatic of these food desert neighborhoods. So, so what we do is try to change that narrative and teach people hands-on. And a big part of it is cultural. Florida has people, it's a melting pot with people from all different cultures. And there is a misconception that Caribbean food is unhealthy or soul food is unhealthy. So we work to reduce incidences of salt, sugar, fat to make those culturally relevant foods healthy.
And awesome. As you know, this is a Fully Alive Men's Health Summit. So the goal is to bring attention to men's health.
Yes.
And as we know, men tend to die younger than women.
Right.
And there are several reasons for that. However, as men get older, there are some diseases that they will develop, like type 2 diabetes.
Right.
1 in 2 men will develop hypertension.
Right.
However, there are things we can do to prevent that. One is screening ourselves to make sure that we do not have it. Looking at that family history to see if someone has high blood pressure in our family, there's a high likelihood we will have high blood pressure. So today, the goal is to talk about cooking, especially for men,
Right.
that will limit the amount of salt you have in your diet, because
Right.
salt actually leads to hypertension. The more salt you eat,
Right.
the likelihood you're going to develop hypertension.
Right.
Then the amount of fatty food and things like that are unhealthy that goes in your food
Right.
might lead to having truncal obesity.
Right.
That's a precursor to type 2 diabetes. So those
Right.
are two diseases right there that
Right.
men need to be aware of,
Right.
where cooking and eating healthy can
Right.
prevent.
Right. We are operating here at Hebni under this mantra: food is medicine.
Yeah.
And all the programs and services that we develop really are going to have that focus on how you can use food in a positive way to help manage those diseases or keep them at bay. So a big part of that, one of the new programs that we're getting ready to start, is MediSoul. And it's our version of a Mediterranean diet, which includes more plant-based foods. And as a matter of fact, what we're going to demonstrate today, when our dietitian Jessica Menard comes on, is a plant-based a meal, because we want to, in some of our classes, for example, we practice something called Meatless Mondays, where we want to just focus on one day, just start one day. And let me get this correct. I don't want to tell people no longer eat meat. That's not what I'm saying, but it's the opposite. We're trying to get you to consume more produce. Growing up, it was always taught that you should have 5 servings of fresh fruit and vegetables. Yeah. When we do our classes and we do our surveys, we ask people, well, how many servings of produce are you getting a day? Many times it's 0, it's 1. So that's the goal of what this all is.
That is awesome. I'm so glad to get to partner with you.
Yes.
And I'm going to have you now introduce our nutrition dietitian.
Yes. So I'm going to introduce Jessica Menard, because you don't want me cooking. So I'll leave it to the expert. Jessica Menard has been a dietitian here at Hebni for 10 plus years. And she is very versed in plant-based meals. And Jessica, come on the scene. And I'm going to turn it over. So it was a pleasure being here, and I'll turn it over to the experts, and so you guys can get busy cooking.
All right, Jessica, welcome again. Nice to meet you.
Nice
and
to meet
thank you for being part of this. And like I was talking to Glenn about, and you heard us, it's like, how do we cook healthy? How do we make meal that makes us healthy? How do we make meals that allows us to thrive and prevent diseases?
And that's a very common question that I usually get, especially if it is like an underserved population, the ones that don't really have the money to buy like organic fruits and vegetables. So the question always is, how can I take what I have, the limited income that I have, and just make it a little bit healthier for myself and my family? And so I have this concept where I usually say, semi-homemade cooking. So if you guys have to buy like pasta and pasta sauce because it is a little bit cheaper, you can make a lot. Thinking of ways that you can add in vegetables. If you can't add in vegetables to that particular meal, looking at maybe adding like a side of fruit instead of your atypical dessert like cookies or ice cream. So I always love kind of thinking outside of the box. So before I became a dietitian, I actually was a chef for 12 years.
Wow.
So I went to culinary school out of high school, and I really, really enjoyed what I did. But the thing is that they teach you in culinary school, you finish everything with butter and cream.
The good stuff.
The good stuff, yes. So my theory was, okay, obviously too much butter and cream as well as salt leads to a lot of health issues like diabetes, hypertension, obesity. So my thought was, how do I take these meals, make them a little bit healthier, but still taste good to appease the population? And so that's kind of why I went back to school to become a registered dietitian.
That's a phenomenal story. So tell us, what are you going to be cooking for us today?
So today I'm actually doing marinated black bean salad. So this is a plant-based dish. It can be used as a main entree, but it also can be used even as a side or like a topping, a snack in between meals for the day. And it's really, really simple to make. It does require a few fresh ingredients that are not too expensive. They should be feasible to buy in the grocery store, as well as some canned items. Now, there are some people who really don't like canned foods, and that's completely understandable. So you can use the frozen version, or if you want to cook, for example, we're using some beans today. So if you're one of those that really likes to use, dry beans and make them yourself, that's absolutely okay. So Most of the ingredients I have already chopped up. So of course, I went to culinary school, so I have my knife skills. If you're not really that great of a chopper, that's absolutely okay. I have a couple of items that I want to show you guys. So this is actually a chopper that you can buy at like Amazon for like $12 or $15. You could also get this at Walmart. And they do have some that have like a plastic tray at the bottom. But if you guys look, there are like grates here, and there's different sizes as well. So what you really do is, like, let's say you have a piece of bell pepper, you cut it into a square, you put it on here, put it on, push down, and it chops it into like really tiny pieces. So that can save you quite a few minutes when preparing food. And as well as if you have kids and you want to get like the kids involved in cooking, and let's say they're, you know, under the age of 10, you don't want to give them a sharp knife.
Yep.
You can actually use a plastic knife.
Interesting.
So the benefit of having kids in the kitchen is, one, they understand the process that goes into their food, and the more fruits and vegetables that you are incorporating into the meals, it becomes a lifelong habit. So this is actually a lettuce knife.
Interesting.
So, but it works pretty well. You can cut quite a bit of variety of foods with it. I just say maybe something hard like a raw carrot is something that you want to avoid.
Okay.
But this is definitely safe for little kids to use in the kitchen. All right.
So what I'll do is, before you get started, I'm gonna exit.
Okay.
I don't want to get cut with a knife, so I'm gonna walk away from the kitchen and let you take over.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. The floor
You're
is yours.
very welcome. All right. So the recipe that we have is a marinated black bean salad. So usually for myself, with my recipe, I like to get my mise en place. So that actually translates from French into mess in place. So you get all your ingredients, you get your cutting board, your knife, your bowls, whatever you need in front of you. So that way it's not a lot of back and forth where you got to kind of stop and go grab something else. So in the kitchen, typically, if you're kind of going back and forth, that kind of makes you a little more tired. It extends the time of cooking. But what I'm going to do pretty much is just, I'm going to throw everything into the bowl, and then it has to marinate overnight or at least 2 hours in the refrigerator to kind of infuse all of those flavors. But let's go ahead and get started. I am going to chop a couple of things for you guys just so you can see knife skills and kind of learn a little bit about knife safety. So first and foremost, with your knife, you want it to be sharp. If you use a dull knife, that takes a lot of elbow effort. And so with that, you can tire out very easily. But as well as, you want a sharp knife so that way you are able to get those cuts that you're looking for, and it decreases the risk of actually cutting yourself. So I'm going to start with my jalapeno, very similar to how I would cut my bell peppers. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just cut off the top. The jalapeno in this recipe is optional. If you guys don't really like that spicy flavor, that's okay. But I'm going to show you guys how to decrease the spiciness of the jalapeno. So I'm just going to kind of cut it in half. So inside of your bell pepper, you have kind of that white flesh inside of it. And so that is actually where the capsaicin oils are. So that's where all the spiciness comes from. So if you have a spicy pepper, all that white in there is really where all that spice is going to come from. So if you don't want that spice, but you want the jalapeno flavor, you would just go ahead and cut that out. I like my food spicy, so I'm leaving everything in there, including the seeds. So what I'm going to do is, I usually use a claw method so I don't cut my fingers. I'm just going to go ahead and slice these into strips. Turn it sideways, and I'm just going to dice them into really small pieces. The reason why I'm dicing them into small pieces is just because, one, it's going to be spicy. So if I get like a big chunk in my bite in the salad, of course, that's going to overpower all the other flavors. So that's kind of why I do very, very small pieces. But if you, again, really love your spicy food, you really love jalapenos, you're more than welcome to go ahead and throw big chunks in there. Or even if you wanted to do fresh slices, you can. So one of the things I want you guys to notice is I'm using fresh jalapeno and not the canned or jarred jalapeno. The reason behind that is because the jar jalapeno is in a brine. So a brine is a really salty liquid. So to decrease the amount of salt in this recipe, that's why I'm using the fresh one. All right, so I have my jalapenos. I'm gonna go ahead and add my bell peppers. So I have a mix of red and green bell peppers. No difference really in flavor, but it's more of the color. So every color of the fruit and vegetable kingdom provides different antioxidants. So as well as different vitamins. So your reds, your yellows, and your oranges also provide vitamin C as well as vitamin A. And our greens also give us some vitamins as well as different phytochemicals. So if you think of all the colors in fruits and vegetables, you got your purples, you got your white, your yellow, your red, your blues, etc. All of those provide different health properties that we want. So in addition to eating 5 fruits and vegetables a day, try to think of eating a rainbow. How many different colors of food can you get in one day? And meat does not count, even though it's brown and or white. That does not count. You really want to look at your fruits and your vegetables to get those vitamins as well as fiber. So one of the things I didn't get to show you with the pre-chopped peppers is that on the bottom of the bell pepper, you usually see kind of bumps. Sometimes there might be 3 bumps. There might be 4 bumps. Difference is a male and a female bell pepper. What does that mean? Well, a female bell pepper is sweeter, of course. So a sweeter bell pepper is more for eating raw, like if you want to put on your salad and or making like a raw salad like this. The male bell pepper, which has 3 bumps on the bottom, is more ideal for cooking. So if you're going to stir fry, you're going to put in a soup. The male ones are a little less sweet, so they are more ideal for cooking. But not saying you have to go through the whole rack at the grocery store and just look for the female or the male ones. They both work either way. So I have my peppers. Next, I'm going to go ahead and drain and rinse my black beans. So I'm using low sodium canned black beans. They also start making actually no salt added. So if you are really conscious about how much sodium you're taking in a day, you can actually buy the no salt added ones. But the reason why I'm just going to rinse these off is just because I don't want that extra liquid in the marinade, just so that way it doesn't get really soggy. So I have a colander and a sink behind me. I'm going to go ahead and just put them in the colander and rinse them off. Also, a neat little trick with any other canned vegetables. Let's say you're looking for no salt added or low sodium and you can't find it. You can actually rinse off your canned vegetables to reduce some of the salt that's in them. So if you have like canned potatoes or canned green beans, regular sodium, just rinse them off before you go ahead and cook them. And that way you can reduce some of that salt. Same for sugar. If you get fruit in heavy syrup or light syrup, anything that says syrup is sugar. So let's say you can't find 100% fruit juice or no sugar added. Go ahead and rinse off that fruit before you eat it to get rid of some of that excess sugar. So I like black-eyed peas. I'm going to go ahead and do 1 can of black beans, 1 can of black-eyed peas. Now, keep in mind, you can have a little bit of variation with your own recipe as well. You don't have to follow it to a T. So let's say you hate black beans. You absolutely can't stand them. You can substitute another type of beans. So if you want to do red beans, garbanzo beans, or just black-eyed peas, etc., you can substitute a different type of bean. So beans actually provide us with 1 fiber. That skin gives us a lot of fiber. So fiber has 2 benefits. 1, to help us use the bathroom and keep us regular, but also 2, it makes us fuller faster. So if we're eating a meal that's very high in fiber, we have a likelihood to actually feel fuller and eat a lot less. So what does that mean? A little less calories during that meal time. And then also another beneficial property of beans as well as lentils is they give protein. So if you want to have like a meatless day out of the week, you can substitute beans or lentils as your protein source. So next, I'm going to go ahead and use some diced onions. So this is about half an onion that's diced up. Keep in mind, you want to keep all your cuts uniform. So that means all your cuts of peppers, of onion, of jalapeno, you want them to be around the same size. Again, if I had bigger pieces of onion and then smaller pieces of pepper, when you go take a bite of the salad, get a huge chunk of onion or even garlic, that's going to overpower all the rest of the flavors. Same for cooking. Let's say if I was going to do this over heat, I would want all my pieces to be around the same size because the smaller ones are going to cook faster than the bigger ones. And while you're waiting for the bigger pieces to cook, the smaller ones are actually going to burn. So I have my onions. I have a can of reduced salt corn. For myself, I really like the frozen one. So you could also substitute frozen corn as well. Usually the frozen corn does not have any salt added to it. You would just have to kind of defrost it right before you're ready to make your salad. So that way you can get off any excess liquid. So properties of corn. Corn is actually a starchy vegetable. So if you're one of those families that says, well, I had my vegetable today, I had some potatoes and corn with my meat, corn doesn't actually count as a vegetable. It actually counts as a starch. So it would be the same as potato, rice, pasta, bread. Yes, it has some fiber, the same as like whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, but you really want to count like your corn and your peas, even your lima beans as a starchy vegetable and still include a non-starchy vegetable. For those who eat like plantains, yuca, sweet potatoes, all those again are really starchy vegetables. So again, that's going to be on your plate as your starch and then looking for your non-starchy vegetables. So next we need about 3 ounces of lime juice. You could also substitute lemon juice as well. So this is going to kind of give us that vinaigrette that we're looking for. So just about 3 ounces. I'll actually use a measuring cup as well.
There's a place downtown that does the same thing.
And then for our salsa, there's different variations of salsa. So this is a low sodium salsa. You can also use like fresh pico de gallo that you can find in the store. Pico de gallo is pretty much kind of like salsa, but this is a cooked version, which gives it a longer shelf life. But the low sodium salsa, again, a reason to add more vegetables to our dish. So salsa has tomatoes, onions, peppers, cilantro, and it also helps to incorporate a bit more flavor into this dish. All right, so next I am going to add my cumin. So if you're not familiar with cumin, cumin is a dry spice. It has a very strong earthy flavor. So just be mindful when you are using cumin to just go a little bit at a time, taste it, and see if you want a little bit more. So for my recipe, I only need about half a teaspoon. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my measuring spoons and grab my half a teaspoon. Sprinkle that on there. Next, I'm actually going to use low sodium tagine. And or if you don't have any tagine, you could use low sodium taco seasoning. So that is about 2 teaspoons I'm going to need. So I'm going to grab my teaspoon, 1 and 2. So again, as you guys can see, a lot of low sodium products I'm using in order to keep that salt intake very low with this meal. All right, so next we are going to do our olive oil. So about a teaspoon or a quarter cup. Actually, I'm going to do about a tablespoon just because I'm doing a little bit more of the beans. So I have a little more surface to cover. So 1 tablespoon. So if you can kind of think of it, our lemon juice, our oil, as well as I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar in there. That's kind of our vinaigrette that helps to bring out and give that flavor a pop. So I'm mixing acidic flavors with the vinegar and the lemon or lime juice, as well as savory flavors with the onions, the peppers. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic as well as cilantro and parsley. And then we also have that really earthy flavor coming from the cumin as well as the taco seasoning, which has like chili peppers in it, other peppers as well. So for my vinegar, let's see, I'm going to do 2 ounces of vinegar. So I got my liquid measuring cup. And pour that in there. So I hope you guys can see this is all like a one pot dish. You just literally throw everything in there, you mix it up, refrigerate it for a few hours, and it's ready to go. This is also really great, like if you guys are going to throw any parties and you want to, and you're thinking about like having healthy appetizers instead of like buffalo wings, chips, and things like that. This is a really great addition to add. And trust me, a lot of people will love it and ask you for the recipe. So next, I'm going to do honey. So this is about 2 ounces of honey. Instead of my liquid measuring cup, I'm actually going to use my spoon. So 2 tablespoons equals 1 ounce. I know this is a lot of math. So I'm going to do 4 tablespoons, which will give me 2 ounces. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So normally as a dietitian, I do a lot of cooking classes. Like I had mentioned, I was a chef for 10 years, 12 years, and I've been a dietitian for about 10 years. So I love doing cooking classes. My main audience usually is kids. So I love teaching kids the joy of cooking, learning the basics of just getting in the kitchen, preparing some of, their favorite meals, making it a little bit healthier. I also primarily work with kids as well. So I do a little bit of cardiac, eating disorders, just general healthy education for kids and families. So I really enjoy this. And yes, I do this at home all day. So I have a kid at home. And yes, I sneak in vegetables in some of her favorite foods. I'll even make muffins with vegetables snuck in there, black bean brownies. I make banana ice cream. She has no idea. As long as she doesn't see me making it, it's a hit at home. All right, so garlic, I'm going to use fresh garlic today. You can use like the chopped garlic that comes in water or oil to save some time. But typically with my fresh garlic, I like to smash it. And then just go ahead and chop it. Now for garlic, you do want the pieces to be very small. Again, very, very strong in flavor. You don't want a big chunk in there. As you know, it will kind of ruin the effect of the meal, but then you'll also have really bad garlic breath the rest of the day. So I'm going to go ahead and chop that very finely. So just in case you're kind of wondering about the knife that I'm using, this is called a santoku knife. So this is a Japanese vegetable knife. It has little grooves on the side, and the reason for those grooves is it prevents food from sticking to the side of the knife. Just as effective as a chef knife. All right. I'm going to go ahead and add that garlic. Last ingredient will be my cilantro and my parsley. Now, the recipe does call for like some drying parsley. I'm actually going to use fresh. And believe it or not, with fresh, you got to use just a little bit more than what the recipe calls for. When they are dried, the flavor is a bit more concentrated. Same for garlic. You're going to use a little bit more fresh garlic than your powder. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that a rough chop. And go ahead and add. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of salt to bring out the flavor. And mix. So once this is mixed, you do want to cover. Again, marinate minimal, at least 2 hours in the refrigerator. Overnight will give you a lot more flavor. And you can serve this with tortilla chips. So today I actually have whole grain tortilla chips. The difference between these and your regular tortilla chips, they do mix in like brown rice flour. You get a little bit more fiber with these. Same calories, but it's just, again, you get that fiber aspect of it. And then also too, you can serve this instead of with chips, you can use this kind of like as a salsa. So if you have like chicken or fish, you can use this as like a side to go with that dish. Or even if you just want to warm up some 90-second rice, you can kind of serve that with it as well. And not only do you have your starch, you have your proteins and your vegetables with that. All right.
Wow. Now that the cooking is done, so let's see what the verdict is. Because I'm kind of watching you and it looks very appetizing. So let's see. Are you ready for this?
You're going to like it.
Wow. The flavor, oh my God.
So what flavors are you picking up?
Cilantro, the onion. This is really good.
How about the textures? What do you think about the different textures that you're getting?
I love the consistency of the texture.
So you get a little bit of like a crunch. You get that softness from the beans.
Okay, I am stealing this recipe.
Perfect.
Oh my God. This is really, really good. You don't have the recipe. We'll put the recipe in the chat for you to try this out. This is very, very good and healthy. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time out to teach us how to eat healthy, cook healthy, and at the same time using something natural.
Yes.
Versus engineered food, processed food.
Yes.
This is all organic. And it tastes this good. And it's wow.
And considering, some might question, well, we did use some processed food. So for example, like these would be processed, the canned would be processed, but they are minimally processed, which means once they are picked, they are cooked, they are put in the can, versus a highly processed food would be maybe one with like beans with a cheese sauce, or like your frozen meats that come breaded with a sauce. Those would be more of the foods you really want to try to limit, and still super cheap. A serving of this probably costs about $1.20 per serving.
All right, guys, I'm taking this on with me. If you let me, this is really good. I'm gonna have more. So now we're gonna bring Mr. Glenn back on stage.
Well, Dr. Adewale gets seconds. It's really good. Jessica, don't go anywhere.
Oh,
don't go anywhere, not yet.
Okay.
And I tasted this too, and this is really good. And this is a tried and true recipe that Hebni has made for years, and it is simple, but it is so delicious. And even on a day like today, where it is warm, it's probably 95 degrees outside, this can serve as a nice, salad, if you will.
And the pepper.
The pepper. Yeah. So I concur that this is a delicious recipe. We do have a question that came in from the audience about a gluten allergy. What if someone has a gluten allergy? How do you modify this, if any, for a gluten?
So this recipe is actually gluten-free. The only thing that would contain gluten would be the tortilla chips, but they do have like gluten-free tortilla chips. You can get chips made with rice flour, or you can substitute something else. Instead of having chips, like I had mentioned, you can serve it as part of an entree with a protein, some rice, or you can eat it just as is. Even if you do like gluten-free toast, that's also another option that you can have with that as well.
And is there any other substitutions? I mean, I know there's no dairy in here, but is there any other substitutions?
There's no dairy, but the recipe does call for cojita cheese, which is optional. So that's a Mexican white cheese that's very mild in flavor that you can add. But Some other things that you could add to this, if you want to add maybe a little bit of mango or pineapple, you could even add cucumber. Cucumber would make it more of like a cool salad, as well as, again, substituting any of the beans. So you could do like garbanzo beans, you could do white beans, kidney beans, even use lentils. If you want to even make it more of a hearty salad, maybe you can get some ancient grains, frike, quinoa, farro. You can cook that and then also add that to it and let it sit and let the grains soak up that flavor.
One question. I taste something sweet here. What is that?
That is actually the honey.
Ah.
So yes, the honey, it offsets the spice of the jalapeno, but also adds just a little bit of a sweetness to the rest of the flavors that you're getting. So if you really think about it, you got sweetness, you got salty, you got sour, and you also got savory.
So for me personally, if you see me sweating, anytime I touch spice, I start sweating. So you know, and this is not even spicy. I guess as I get older, I'm losing my palate. But I want to say thank you very much again. And Mr. Glenn, you said something briefly about the MediSoul. Can you elaborate on that before we go?
Definitely. So research and studies have proven that Mediterranean diet can be helpful in impacting, and Jessica, you can talk way more knowledgeably about this than I can. But for those diet-related diseases that we talked about earlier, the hypertension, the diabetes, obesity, and the main benefactor is the introduction of more plant-based meals and recipes into our diets. Our founders have written 6 books for the American Diabetes Association all around healthy soul food. So when you think about that Mediterranean diet and soul food, we decided to bring those 2 cultures together and introduce MediSoul. So we're putting our soul, what we eat here, in the and trying to introduce more plant-based meals into that. And again, I want to stress to the audience, this is in no way to stop you from eating your beef or your pork or whatever you eat, but the goal is really to introduce more, again, going back to that basic 5 per day, but how can we even take that to the next level? And some of these recipes, these plant-based recipes, including what Jessica made here today, is the key to doing that. Yeah.
So looking at, you know, your beef and your pork, your red meats, trying to limit to 1 to 2 times a week, doing more fish. Fish has a lot of healthy properties, healthy fats. It's a lean protein, as well as your poultry. So chicken and turkey are also your lean protein sources on the Mediterranean diet. They do a lot more fruits and vegetables. Dairy is only a few days out of the week. So that includes like milk products, yogurt, cheese, any other dairy products. Eggs is even probably around 3 to 4 times during the week. And then they also use fats, but they use more of the healthy fats, olive oil, plant-based oils. So any of your oils that are liquid at room temperature are going to be a lot healthier than your solid ones, like your Crisco, your butter, even your margarine you want to use in moderation as well.
So I just want to say thank you very much if you're out there live streaming with us today on this episode of Fully Alive Men's Health Summit, which is You Are What You Eat, and how to cook healthy to stay healthy and live longer. On our next iteration, we'll be having functional mobility with MS Fitness at MS Fitness Studios. So more information coming. And at the last Saturday of the month, which is June 29, we will be having the in-person Men's Health Brunch. So we are looking forward to you joining us. And thank you very much for participating in the event. Until next time, let's all eat healthy. And thank you, Hebni, for having us.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.